The Queen of Swords in Joe Bandel's Oak Tarot of Love and Romance presents a striking visual paradox where a gleaming sword and an outstretched hand of comfort exist in the same space. It's an image that challenges our usual ideas of romance, moving away from soft, hazy sentimentality towards something Bandel calls quiet resilience. This isn't just about a woman holding a weapon, it's about the intersection of clear-eyed truth and gentle empathy. The card shows her in silver and charcoal robes, standing by a massive oak tree, with one sword held with dignity and another floating directly over her heart. It raises a fascinating question. How can someone be both the wielder of a sharp, discerning mind and a source of deep, nurturing compassion?
That balance is the core of what Bandel is doing with the entire sword suit in this deck. Traditionally, the Queen of Swords is seen as the Ice Queen, the widow, the intellectual, someone who's had to harden themselves because of past sorrow. But in the Oak Tarot, she's evolved. The grief is still there, represented by those floating swords, but she's transformed it into a tool for understanding rather than a wall for protection. She isn't cold, she's clear. Bandel describes her as having a quiet strength born from her own pain. She's learned not to take things personally, which allows her to see the reality of a situation or a person without the distortion of her own ego. That's why she can reach out to comfort someone unseen in the card. She can offer genuine empathy precisely because she isn't getting lost in the other person's drama.
It seems like a very difficult line to walk. If you're being that objective and clear-eyed, wouldn't it be easy to come across as detached or even clinical? You mentioned she doesn't take things personally, but in a romantic context, isn't love inherently personal? If I'm with someone and they're looking at me with that kind of knowing smile and clear eyes, I might feel more like I'm under a microscope than in a relationship. How does Bandel reconcile that intellectual distance with the warm golds and the gentle empathy he attributes to her?
That's where his philosophy of organic Gnosticism comes in. In the Oak Matrix, he defines duality not as a conflict or a war, but as a loving embrace of opposites. He views the mind, the sword's energy, as a necessary structure that allows emotional energy to flow safely. Think of it like a riverbank. Without the firm, clear boundaries of the bank, the water just becomes a chaotic flood. The Queen of Swords is that bank. Her distance isn't about being unfeeling, it's about creating a safe container. When she looks at you clearly, she isn't judging you by some impossible standard. She's seeing the truth of who you are, flaws and all, and choosing to stay present. In Bandel's system, the most romantic thing you can do is give someone the truth. It's a high-frequency exchange because it requires the courage to move past the rose-colored glasses phase into what he calls informed care.
So she's essentially a sparring partner for the mind and a witness for the soul. That sounds intellectually stimulating, but I wonder about the practical experience. Bandel actually breaks this down into the male and female experiences of the card. For a man, he says you might feel safe and understood around her because she sees you without the drama. But is there a risk there? If a man is used to a more traditional, perhaps more volatile or performative emotional connection, does this level of quiet dignity feel sterile, like you're being managed rather than loved?
That's a valid tension, and Bandel doesn't shy away from it. In his writings on the King of Swords, he notes a similar struggle, that being honest can sometimes look like building a wall, but for the Queen, the presence of that oak tree is the key. In the Oak Matrix, the tree represents grounded reality and endurance. It's the standard of truth that stays firm while the light and the leaves are shifting. A man might initially feel that her lack of drama is a lack of passion, but over time, he realizes it's actually a form of incredible reliability. He doesn't have to walk on eggshells or perform for her. She's already seen the shadow, that's what the swords symbolize, and she hasn't run away. That creates a profound sense of safety. It's the womb is always open metaphor Bandel uses. It's a sanctuary where you don't have to be perfect, just real.
And for the female experience, he says you might find yourself becoming more clear and less easily hurt. That seems like a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of being reactive to every slight or misunderstanding, you're learning to protect your peace while staying open-hearted. But isn't there a danger of that becoming a form of emotional armor? If I decide I'm not taking things personally, am I also shutting down my ability to be truly vulnerable? How does she keep that sword from becoming a barrier?
The distinction is in the placement of the swords. Notice that one floats above her heart. It isn't piercing the heart, and it isn't a shield held in front of it. It's a reminder of past pain that has been integrated. In Bandel's view, the Queen of Swords has done the work of ego deconstruction. She knows that her peace doesn't come from other people behaving perfectly. It comes from her own internal alignment. She can speak her truth with empathy because she isn't trying to win the argument or change the other person to make herself feel better. She's simply reporting what is. This is what Bandel calls mastering the interface. You're moving away from toxic brainwashing that says love is about merging or losing yourself and toward a coherence where you remain fully yourself, even while in a deep connection.
Let's talk about the visual details, because Bandel is very specific about the colors and the symbols. The cool silvers and soft grays represent the mind, the air element of the swords. But then you have these warm golds. He says her face shows gentle empathy and a wise smile. If we look at this through the lens of his broader work, like the Oak Matrix Unleashed, he often talks about bioelectrical charges and photon light. Is this queen essentially a manifestation of a high-frequency state of being, where the intellect and the heart are so perfectly synchronized that they create this calm, radiant strength?
Exactly. He describes the relationship in this deck as a resonant circuit. The body is the capacitance, the aura is the inductance, and truth is the current. If you have too much emotion and no structure, you blow a fuse. That's the chaotic flood I mentioned. If you have too much structure and no heart, the circuit is dead. That's the Ice Queen. The Queen of Swords represents a high-pressure equilibrium. She's sustaining a lot of power. Those silver and charcoal robes suggest she's sophisticated and elegant, but the gold indicates she's fueled by a warm spirit. She's managed to marry the surgical precision of the mind with the expansive nature of the soul. It's what he calls organic Gnosticism, bringing heaven to earth by being fully present in the reality of our human experience, including the painful parts.
That idea of truth as a surgical instrument is fascinating. In his analysis of the Three of Swords, he says it's meant to heal only after it cuts. It seems like the queen has moved past the cutting phase. She's the one holding the instrument with such mastery that it doesn't cause unnecessary damage anymore. She's the surgeon who has healed her own wounds and can now guide others. But I'm stuck on this unseen person she's reaching out to comfort. Why is the person unseen? Is she comforting the listener, or is she comforting a part of herself?
It could be both. In the context of a reading, she might be reaching out to the querent, offering that clear-eyed compassion to help them navigate their own mental fog. But psychologically, she might be comforting her own inner child or the parts of her history that were hurt. By keeping the figure unseen, Bandel makes her a universal archetype of the wise mother or the mentor. She's the presence that says, I see the struggle, I've been through the fire, and I promise you that clarity is possible. It also reinforces her independence. She isn't defined by the person she's helping. She stands by the oak tree, rooted in her own authority. She offers help, but she doesn't need to be needed. That's a huge part of the Queen of Swords' power, her autonomy.
This autonomy is something Bandel emphasizes in his Oak Matrix Anchors, specifically the idea of becoming your own authority. He suggests that we often give our power away to social enforcers or toxic beliefs. The Queen of Swords seems like the ultimate antidote to that. She doesn't seek validation, she seeks coherence. But in a romance, doesn't that make her a little intimidating? If she doesn't need you and she sees right through your masks, what's the hook for the partner? Where is the seductive element that Bandel mentions in other sword cards like the Four of Swords?
The hook is the rarity of being truly seen. Most of our romantic interactions are based on projections. We love the version of the person we've created in our heads. The Ace of Swords in this deck is about disillusionment as a romantic act, shattering those projections so you can see the human being. The Queen of Swords is the master of that state. The seduction isn't in a game or a mask. It's in the electric quality of a high-level intellectual and spiritual bond. Bandel says her heart won't throb until a lover has proven their conversation skills. She's fired up by breathless intellectual discussion. For the right partner, someone who is also seeking truth and growth, that kind of clarity is incredibly magnetic. It's the union of egoists he talks about, where two sovereign individuals choose to stand together because they recognize each other's frequency.
It's a very adult version of love. No chasing, no groveling, no performing, just two people standing in the sunlit clearing of their own truth. It's interesting how the color palette reinforces this. The cool silvers and deep blues are the mind meeting the warm golds of the spirit. It's that intersection of logic and intuition. But let's look at the controversy here. Some might say this strips the magic out of romance. If we're always being discerning and objective, where is the room for that blinding early attraction or the wildfire of the wand suit? Is Bandel suggesting that the sword suit is superior or just a necessary stage in the soulmate cycle?
He definitely wouldn't say it's superior. The soulmate cycle is about integrating all the elements. You need the spiritual fire of the wands, the emotional depth of the cups, and the physical manifestation of the pentacles. But without the swords, the mental love, those other fires just burn themselves out or turn into a cage of dependency. The Queen of Swords isn't there to kill the magic. She's there to make sure the magic is sustainable. She's the one who notices when the rose-colored glasses are starting to distort reality. She's the reality check. And for Bandel, reality is actually more magical than fantasy. He talks about organic Gnosticism as a way of finding the sacred in the physical. When you stop living in a dream and start living in the intense present moment, that's when you actually touch the divine.
So if someone pulls the Queen of Swords in a reading about their relationship, it's not necessarily a warning that things are getting chilly. It's an invitation to elevate the conversation, to stop sparring and start witnessing, to use your words as a sanctuary rather than a cage. It's a call to look at where you're being armored instead of clear-hearted. It's about having the courage to say, this is who I am. This is what I see, and I'm staying right here by this oak tree, whether you choose to join me in this clarity or not.
That's exactly it. She's the standard of integrity. She reminds you that you can stay open-hearted while still protecting your peace. It's a slow, firm growth, like the oak itself. You're building a foundation that can weather any storm because it's built on truth rather than a performance. It's about the courage to be seen clearly and the even greater courage to see another person for who they truly are. As Bandel often says, the embrace was always here and the grove is patient. The Queen of Swords is just the one brave enough to hold the light steady for the rest of us while we find our way there.
It's a powerful vision of leadership within a relationship. It moves the archetype from a cold judge to a wise protector. It tells us that the sharpest tool we have, our mind, isn't meant for war, but for carving out a space where love can finally be honest. If we can reach that level of quiet resilience, we aren't just surviving our relationships, we're using them as laboratories for the soul. That seems like a goal worth the discomfort of the surgical cut. If you found this exploration of the Queen of Swords and Joe Bandel's Oak Matrix useful, pass it along to someone who values truth and depth in their own connections.